Hey everybody, Chris Wark, back with another awesome survivor interview. Today it's Paula Black. 21 years ago, Paula was diagnosed with breast cancer. Doctors gave her 3 to 6 months to live if she didn't do conventional treatment, which was surgery, chemo, and radiation. But Paula researched and learned some things and made a decision to radically change her life, her diet, everything. And guess what happened? She's still alive. 21 years later, she got well. And she wrote a book called Life, Cancer, and God. She is actually a real estate agent and directed a miniseries called Winning Over Cancer. And and she's inspired a lot of people. I'm really excited to interview her and share her story with you. Some of you may know her already, but either way, hi, Paula.
Hi, Chris. It's great to be with you today.
Great to have you. I'm so excited to hear more details about your story and, of course, share those details with whoever is watching or listening. So let's dive in. What happened?
Okay. Well, I was 45 at the time. Very, very busy. Always very busy. Workaholic, really. And thought I was healthy, athletic, outgoing, busy, felt good. And I had a lump in my breast that got larger and larger. And I'd had a lot of benign cysts. So I didn't really take it too seriously for quite a long time. And then I started realizing there was something more to this, but I didn't want to deal with it. I didn't have time to deal with it. So I waited and waited way too long. And finally, I got into the doctor for a mammogram, and it was a whirlwind from there on. Was scheduled for a lumpectomy right away. So once I went into the hospital, did the lumpectomy, I was told I had aggressive cancer, and that if I didn't do everything that they recommended, which was aggressive chemo, radiation, more surgery, then I would probably not live more than 3 or 6 months. So
were they doing were they doing estrogen receptor positive, negative breast cancer typing back then, or Herceptin, or any of that stuff?
I don't remember that,
yeah.
But I was so oblivious. Back then, we weren't educated. We weren't used to hearing about it. We weren't talking about it. So there wasn't this medium that there is today where people are informed and people have a lot more access to information and education. I was pretty much an isolated island. There was no internet. So it was just, you hear that information and you have one resource, the doctor. And
so 21 years ago was late 90s, right? 99? 97, sorry, yeah. Don't ask me to do math. 97. And I was diagnosed in 2003 and really, changed my life in 2004. And the internet wasn't helpful to me then either.
Yeah, it was a long time before that was a real resource. So hearing I had cancer, fortunately, I was married to a guy who had been the only survivor of an airplane crash and was told he'd never walk again. And he learned how to study, research, think right, do the right things to get well. So he was partnering with me to say, we can do this. We can figure this out. Well, let's learn what cancer is. Let's learn how you got it. Let's learn how we can defeat it.
That's incredible.
So I was really blessed.
Yeah, wow. I mean, that's just so awesome.
So, once I had this diagnosis and I was scheduled for a lumpectomy and told it was so bad, I was immediately scheduled for another surgery where they were going to do radical mastectomy and then put me into chemo. Well, I immediately started researching with my husband at the library. We spent hours every day at the library learning what we could from journals and from books and articles and everything we could find. So we were searching, and the more we learned, the more shocked we were about what we were learning.
And what did you learn at that time? Like, what were some of the things you found at the library? Now, I mean, people are too lazy to even click around on the internet. I mean, you're in the library, like, using the Dewey Decimal System and whatnot.
It's true. It's true. Well, we were learning how what cancer is, abnormal cells that are growing faster than our body can get rid of them. That's the 101 definition of cancer. And learning how those form, what causes those to form. There's various things which you talk about a lot. The lack of dehydration is a serious one. Lack of nutrients, lack of oxygen in the cells, stress, what that does to our body and changes the DNA of the cells. I mean, there's so many toxins we're exposed to, and the lack of sleep. I mean, I was a classic case waiting for cancer. I had no idea. I thought people got zapped with cancer. It was just a unlucky draw that I was going to get cancer.
Right, just like a lightning bolt.
Yeah, but it's not. It's so predictable.
Yeah.
And that was one of the things that was beginning to uncover itself, but I was still early in my research. So in no time, I was back in the hospital with another surgery, but I had set up a reconstructive surgeon. I was going to have to do a double mastectomy. I had checked and called a lot of women who had had cancer before me, breast cancer. And I had talked to these women and said, what do you like that you did? What do you wish you'd have done different? What would you change if you could do it over again? So I was trying to gather a lot of information. So I knew I had one chance to make the right choices. So in talking to these women, I was really being educated on things they wished they'd have done different, things they were glad they did. Of these 5 women who were ahead of me in the game of breast cancer, they were all still alive. They were all, most of them were considered in remission at this point. And so based on all that information, I decided, okay, I'm going to do a double mastectomy and then reconstructive surgery and get this thing behind me, thinking still that that's what would do the trick. And so I'm back in the hospital for the reconstructive surgeon is there. My surgeon's there. I'm going through the typical process that the medical system puts you on. Here I go down the conveyor belt. And oh my gosh, I have to insert here that faith is a big part of my life. I believe in God. I believe in the Bible.
Me too.
And I can't tell my story without including that because that was the guiding force in my journey. And before I got in for the second surgery, I was really praying, God, you have a plan for me. I believe that you want me well because that's what your word teaches. I believe you want to see me get through this victoriously because that's what your word says. And I trust you. It's a relationship, not a religion. And so I really did have a confidence in him guiding me to what I needed, whatever that would be. Now, in the beginning, I assumed he'd use the doctors and the medical system to do that. So, but while I was reading my Bible, after praying and praying, I was reading and reading, and this particular scripture really just jumped off the page at me. And it was 1 Corinthians 10:13. It's kind of become my signature verse in regards to cancer because it was the scripture God gave me. And it said, I will not tempt you beyond that which you're able to endure without making a way of escape. I went, great. He has a way of escape for me. Now, what is it? I have to find it because it's out there. So I started looking more diligently, what is the way he wants me to go through this process to victory. So I was still assuming it was the doctors, but I'm back in the hospital now, and I'm in the second surgery, and they're going to do all this radical mastectomy and reconstruction. And next thing I know, I'm being slapped on the face and told to wake up, and the surgery's been aborted. I had a really bad staph infection from the lumpectomy. So now I'm on hold for 30 days. And now I have to be on antibiotics and wait. And of course, I had the mindset back then that, oh no, cancer's growing in my body. I can't get it out. I have 30 days to sit and let this grow. Well, now I realize it's been growing for 2 years or more, probably. And that isn't an issue. And I was thinking incorrectly because that's not what the problem was. So during that 30 days, I thought, God, what are you doing? You're messing with my plan here, and you aren't showing me my way out. And little did I know that was such a blessing that I had that 30-day hiatus to do more research. So during that 30 days, I learned so much more about cancer. I finally realized I'd given it to myself. I wasn't zapped like a lightning bolt. I had given it to myself. I was a perfect candidate. I drank caffeinated beverages, tons of coffee, Cokes, sugar, dehydrated, very little sleep, worked all the time, super stressed, didn't know how to handle stress. I had all the classic symptoms. I ate food in the microwave, fast food because I was on the go all the time. I didn't have a clue how to avoid cancer. And after I learned what I learned, I realized I had given it to myself. The beauty of that was that I figured, wow, if I gave it to myself, I can reverse it myself. So learning why I got it and changing all those behaviors and changing all that approach to life was my secret. I mean, it was my way of escape.
Was there a light bulb moment or like a particular book that you discovered during that time that was like, really turned things around for you?
Yes. During that time, my mother saw this medical doctor on a TV program that was sharing about having breast cancer. She was a medical surgeon. She had been in San Francisco General. You know probably who I'm talking about.
I do.
And she was describing this approach that she took. She decided not to go the medical route, even though she was in the system, and ended up finding an alternative path to heal herself of aggressive breast cancer. When my mother saw this doctor, she sent me all the information immediately. When I watched, back then, it was a VHS tape I stuck in the machine. When I watched that tape, it was like the scripture that had jumped off the page for me. I knew it. That was my way of escape. This is what I'm going to do. This was my way of escape. So I was so excited. That was my single moment that I knew I had found it, the way of escape. Now, my husband, being the man that he is, tried to track this doctor down. He made calls. He did so much research. Finally found a phone number, called her. And the person that answered the phone said, no, she doesn't see patients. No, she doesn't talk to patients. No, you cannot talk to her. No, no, no. He called and he called and he called with a story every time trying to get through to her. And finally, she talked to him and agreed to meet with us. And we found out she was like 10 minutes away.
Whoa.
From where we lived. So she came and met me and my husband and my mother-in-law at our office where I worked. And I gave her all my medical reports. And I talked to her, and she was the one that really pulled it all together for me. She told me how sick I was, but she explained that, cancer is a systemic disease. It is all through my body. It's not the tumor. The tumor isn't the cancer. It's just a symptom of the cancer. So that was we spent 4 hours together. Bless her heart, she just gave that to me and changed my life because I was committed to the path that I then took to follow her lead. And I still didn't know a lot or understand a lot of the details. I still had so much to learn, but I just did what she did. I did exactly what she told me to do. And in doing that, I got well. It took about 12 months, but I didn't cheat. I was so diligent. I did carrot juice all day long. I took green barley. I drank good pure water. I got plenty of sleep. So I was doing all the right things for my body.
And you probably did a raw food diet, right?
I did pretty much raw foods.
Yeah.
I did do some steamed vegetables, some cooked soups, but they were all natural. I was very careful. And that was, I got worse before I got better, though. I got sicker. I could barely walk. I got so much worse. And now I realize, being educated, that a lot of that was probably the cancer cells dying in my body that were so toxic. And I didn't know about a lot of things.
Describe what getting worse for you was like, because this is something that I try to help people understand a lot, is sometimes you have to get worse before you can get better. But getting worse is scary. And people, a lot of times if they get a little worse in the beginning, feel worse, or maybe their tumor becomes more sensitive, more painful, hardens, things like that, they panic, right? And then they end up rushing into treatments that are aggressive and brutal and not effective long term, and they regret, and things can kind of go downhill really fast. So what did getting worse for you, and by the way, well, it's okay to say the name of this doctor, right?
Yes, I don't know. I didn't know, so I did.
People are going to be like, well, who is it? No, it's Dr. Lorraine Day.
Yes.
And I also found her. I also watched that videotape. Cancer. Yes, it's called Cancer Doesn't Scare Me Anymore. Maybe it's on YouTube. I'm not even sure. I don't know if it ever even made it to DVD. But a friend of my mom's had it, and she gave it to my mom. My mom gave it to me. I watched it, and it was great because I was already on that path. I was already on a raw foods and juicing path, and then when I watched that tape, it was just more confirmation for me. It was just like one more, another little shot in the arm for me to be like, okay, someone else is saying this is what I need to do, and this is a person who's healed. And so she was a big encouragement to me in early 2004 as well. So anyway, describe what getting worse was meant for you.
Well, the lymph nodes under my left arm were swollen, very painful. I had a lump that developed on my arm that was hard, and I didn't know what it was. I assumed it was a tumor. My abdomen was getting so sore. I was in so much pain internally, I could barely walk. I had to just lean on my husband, but I tried to walk every day to keep exercising, but I was barely able to walk. So I was feeling horrible. I was feeling worse. I first got diagnosed, I felt good. I didn't even feel sick, but I progressively got sicker, and it really got worse when I started this natural approach physically with my body, because the cancer cells were dying. I now understand that the cancer cells were dying. They're very toxic, and they were making me sicker. And it's when you heal naturally, it takes time. It's not like a drug that creates a reaction. It's slower. It's more root-based. I mean, you're really changing things at the root level, but it takes time, and you have to stay with the plan. I was committed to the plan because I felt like God had directed me to it. So I didn't question the plan. And that was my biggest benefit, because I wasn't looking back. And I told my husband, if I die doing this, I still did the right thing. I just knew I had done the right thing. So I was going on that path. But the biggest challenge I had through the whole journey was the fear. And so that's what you were talking about, that people get fearful. But here's the deal. When I was trusting the doctors, I was giving away my power. I was giving it to the doctors. I was giving it to the medical system. I was giving it to the cancer. Whatever happened, happened. I was just a pawn in the whole game. But when I took control and said, no, this is my plan, I'm taking this course of action, I took my power back. And that changes everything, because now you have a power base from which to operate. You make choices. There's a scripture that says, I've set before you life and death, blessings and curses. Therefore, choose life, that you and your descendants will live. And I'm going to jump ahead real quick for a second, because that scripture played out in my life. because a year after I was diagnosed and got better, I got well, my son had a tumor on his collarbone. And the doctors wanted to remove his collarbone. And it was growing really fast. And he said, Mom, what should I do? And I went to Dr. Day and I said, what should he do? And she said, cancer's cancer. Do the same thing you did. Have him do exactly the same thing you're doing. So he did. He started doing all the same things I was doing. And the tumor shrunk, disappeared. Eventually the bone filled back in, but it just went away. The doctor couldn't believe it. He was upset about it. It's so shocking that he got well. The doctor's mad.
Yeah, it cost him something. That was a lost revenue opportunity.
Exactly. But that's where I made the right choice. And chose life, and my son benefited from that. So
That's
he made
amazing.
the same choice and was well.
I love that so much. That is, how long did it take you how much time passed before you turned a corner, right? When you're feeling bad at first, and before you answer, let me just inject. When you adopt a hardcore nutrition protocol, raw foods, juicing, life change, right? There's a bunch of things that happen. One is you're detoxifying. Two is you're suffering from food and addiction withdrawal, which makes you feel bad, withdrawing from sugar and caffeine and a diet that's really high in protein and fat. So you're feeling bad from all these different angles. And then on top of that, there's sort of a theory that when you really change your life and start, quote unquote, fighting cancer nutritionally and holistically, that the cancer fights back, right? That it kind of, it realizes like, what I was thriving on, right? The food and the unhealthy lifestyle, all the things that were feeding the cancer have been removed. And so now it's kind of like cancer's last stand, where it gets a little bit more aggressive and inflamed, and it's like trying harder to live for a short time, right?
That's true.
It makes a lot of sense to me, and it might give some people a little bit of an epiphany on like, okay, this was what's happening. Like the cancer's fighting back right now. It's okay. You just have to stay the course.
That's right.
So anyway, in this time in your life, how much, when did you turn a corner and get your confidence back up?
I wish I could have journaled it more clearly, but it was several months. It was probably about 6 months.
Yeah.
Before I was feeling better, feeling good again, looking better. Your whole body transforms. And I stayed on that plan for about 12 months total. And by the end of that, I felt better than I'd ever felt. I just felt great. It was 6 months after that, so 18 months after I was diagnosed, that I went back in and had a full body scan. And of course, there was nothing, and there was not a trace of any cancer in my body. An interesting note, even though I never saw my doctor again, because I canceled everything, never went back. Kept getting letters, come back in, never went back. He ran into my mother-in-law, who he had met about a year later in the hospital, because she was volunteering in that same hospital. And he didn't know if I was dead or alive. And he said, how's Paula, when he met her? And he said, is she still alive? Is she doing okay? And my mother-in-law, of course, said, oh, she's doing great. She's completely well. She's just doing great. And the doctor said, tell her she did the right thing, which was huge for him to admit that and support my path, because I had a lot of conversations with him about why I was doing what I was doing. But interesting also, the 5 women that I talked to, that I had gained so much from, all of them died. They all died of cancer. They all got it back again. One of them was brain, another one was lungs. And they all had it come back. And they all died, but they were all going the natural, not the natural, but the medical system way. And how tragic that was for me to keep hearing one after another was dying because of the cancer. And it only reinforced my decision to go the direction that I went. I knew it was still a risk, but it was less of a risk by far than the risk of the medical system. So that was another real reinforcement that I had chosen correctly. The thing you mentioned earlier about fear, that was the hardest part for me of the whole thing. I found a way to deal with it that really worked for me. And it's something I love talking about because that was such a hard battle, but I was so committed to beat it. And I had to stay my course. You know, you talk to people and people tell you about someone else who just died of cancer, or someone else who got cancer, or somebody else who says, oh, you're doing the wrong thing. You shouldn't be doing what you're doing. You need to go see the doctor. You need to go do chemo. You need to do this. Your closest family who love you are telling you, are you sure you're doing the right thing? That instills a lot of fear at all those moments. And sometimes it's just feeling something in your body that creates, oh, is the cancer spreading? Oh, is it here now? Oh, am I getting worse? And those things really affect bringing fear in. And it comes in like a freight train. Well, I early on went and wrote out 3 pages of affirmations, scriptures, truths that I believed about my situation. And every time that fear would come in, I didn't waste a minute. I carried them with me everywhere. And I would pull them out and I would say them out loud. Sometimes I would yell them because I was so committed to giving them authority over my life. This is what has authority over my life, because we're a 3-part person. We live in a body, sure, but we are a spiritual being, and we have a soul, our mind, will, and emotions. Our spirit and soul are eternal. Our body is one body that we get for the time that we're here on this earth. So I knew I had to deal with all 3 parts of me if I was really going to get well. So dealing with my spiritual side through prayer, through reading scripture of what was true about me, and using my soul, my mind, and my intellect to claim truths over my life. I mean, that has a huge impact. We don't realize how important what we say and what we believe are to our health. They have such a far-reaching impact. So I would read these scriptures, all 3 pages, every time fear would come in. And it was many times a day. But every time I finished those 3 pages, I had faith back. I was hopeful. I was excited. I believed in what I was doing. And the fear was gone. And I did that so much through that journey that I know that was a huge part of my getting well and my beating cancer. Because our mind, our mindset, the words we speak out our mouth from our heart make a huge difference. They're powerful in bringing about healing.
I could not agree more. I did many of the same things. Memorized a bunch of healing verses, spoke them over my life and my body. Every time I would feel afraid, I would give my fear to God and then just kind of get and meditate on scripture
That's right.
and healing verses. And so I love hearing that you did that, because that's what I did too. And it's powerful.
It is powerful. It makes a difference in us getting well.
Yeah.
So just try to deal with only the body, and you don't deal with stress and how you manage your stress and getting enough sleep, and you don't deal with how you think and what you really believe in your heart. You're leaving too much on the table. You're keeping the risk too high. You really want to put everything into getting well, then you do all 3 parts, body, soul, spirit.
Yes, absolutely. You know, I've met a lot of cancer patients over the years, and the one thing that people are most hesitant or reluctant to do is to address their heart issues, to address their bitterness and resentment toward other people, to surrender to God, to look in the mirror, right, and address who they are, right. They may change a lot of things. They may change their diet. They may do alternative therapies or chemo or whatever. But the root cause of cancer, I feel like for so many people, is stress and negativity and unhappiness and sin, all of those things.
It
And
is.
gosh, if you're sick and you're facing a terminal illness, what do you have to lose than to turn your life upside down, right?
Exactly. You might as well do all three parts, body,
Might as
soul,
well.
spirit. Revamp yourself because,
Yes.
oh my gosh, it changes you the rest of your life. I wouldn't trade that now. I look back, it was so scary, it was so hard,
Mm-hmm.
but it made me into such a better person with such better tools for living. And so I wouldn't give it up. I wouldn't say, well, I wish that never happened to me. I'm so glad it happened because I serve a God who is able to see me through if I'm willing to do my part. Too many people sit back and say, do it for me, God, do it. Zap me. If he'd have zapped me well, and I know people that have been zapped well, they've been healed miraculously with a touch from God. But I would have just gotten cancer again because I wouldn't have learned what gave me cancer in the first place.
You wouldn't have
So I would
changed.
have gone through the whole thing again.
Right. You wouldn't have changed. I was the same way. I really wanted miraculous healing too, but then, in hindsight, I realized that wasn't the best for me. I had some major problems that needed to be addressed mentally, physically, spiritually, emotionally. All of those things needed to be addressed. And there's something I say often that is offensive to some people, and it is this: chemo is easy. And what I mean by that is chemo requires no change from you. You show up, you get the treatment, you go home to the life you're living that led up to cancer, right?
That's true.
Changing your life is hard. That's hard, right? And when you take the holistic approach, that's what's required, right? There's an epiphany and a light bulb that goes off where you're like, wow, you said it yourself, like, I created this, or I caused this, I did this to myself, and if so, I can undo it. But undoing it's going to take some work, and, that's hard. Chemo is easy. Changing your life is hard.
It's true. And taking ownership for your own life and your own health care, that's really the root of it. Are you willing to take ownership, or are you going to pass that on to someone else? You pass the buck and deal with the consequences that you get. Boy, you have one life. You have one body. And to hand that off to a system that handles people like a conveyor belt, who maybe don't really care. I mean, they're all pieces in the cog. You're going to trust your body to a system rather than take ownership and say, I'm responsible. This is my body. I'm going to make the best choices possible and make the changes that are obviously needed, or I wouldn't be sick. So, not to say, hey, you're at fault, you're to blame. We are all victims of the society we live in. And until something happens to wake us up, we don't pay attention to the water getting warmer and warmer, like the frog is in the kettle and getting hotter and hotter, and eventually cooks because it gets so gradual. And that's the system that we're in. We're in a system that is progressively getting more toxic, more detrimental to us physically, health-wise, emotionally, spiritually. And if we don't say, wait, I'm going to change course, I'm going to pull back and go in a new direction that's better for me, then we get what we get. We just sit there and cook until it's too late. And you can't tip your hat at this. You can't. A lot of people I talk to, they want to tip their hat at it. They want to start taking more vitamins and supplements. They maybe eat more vegetables, drink more water, do carrot juice now and then, but they don't want to do this aggressively. And when you have cancer, I mean, I didn't have any choice. It was life or death. If I wasn't aggressive, the cancer was already, if I didn't get more aggressive, you can't just give equal pressure. You got to overwhelm the negative. I had to do everything I could possibly do to hope to live and beat this naturally. Yeah. The beauty of it is I have never been afraid of getting cancer again. I've never been that victim that has worried about it coming back because I took control in the first place. Where people that go through the system are always waiting, wondering if it's going to be back, when it's going to be back, how much time do they have. I've never worried about that because I learned what it was. I learned how to deal with it. I learned why I got it, and I reversed it. Got well without the doctors or the medical system. So why would I be afraid of that now? That's huge peace of mind.
Yeah, huge peace of mind. I love what you said. Fear is such a huge part of it. Fear suppresses your immune system, makes you more vulnerable to cancer, which doesn't help, right? Because it's a fearful situation already, and then the fear just exacerbates it. But learning how to give your fear to God and trust your instincts and change your whole life. I like what you said about, overwhelming and pushing back way harder than it's pushing against you. That's so true. I mean, we did the same things. We were influenced by the same people, tons of raw food, juicing, total life change, right? Mm-hmm. Everything I could find and afford, I did. I left no stone unturned because, that's the key. Because otherwise, it's like, some people will put their head in the sand and hope for the best. They might try a few things, right? Well, I'll take some vitamins, like you said, or I'll eat some more broccoli or whatever, right? But that is not the attitude of success.
That's right.
And I say this often: massive action produces massive results.
That's right.
And you have to take massive action. The minimal action is going to produce minimal to no results. So, there's no point in taking a multivitamin.
It's like throwing a drop of water on a raging fire. Yeah. It's just not enough.
It's not enough. Well, your story's so amazing. I love it so much. And now tell me what you do now. So you have a website.
I do, winningovercancer.org. Mm-hmm. And I do some cancer coaching. I do some teaching. I do some videos. I need to do better. You do great. You have such a great consistency. I'm doing so many things that it's hard for me to be as consistent as I'd like to be. And I really take the body, soul, spirit approach. I really teach on all three of those areas. So does my husband. But we are such advocates of that because it's biblical. It's sound. It's what works. So you don't argue with what works. It's the truth. You may not like the truth, but that is the truth. And by tapping into the truth, you're empowered to change things, to be victorious. And so, it's a very fulfilling thing. It's very sad to see people who don't embrace it and run with the truth. But for whatever their particular baggage is or their hindrances are, they don't. And it's sad, but I do, you help who you can help, certain people come to you and some of them are very willing to do the work and to do what's necessary and make the changes, and others aren't. And you just help who you can help. And some people say, well, you're doing a lot for not a lot of results, but you get enough results. They go, yeah, they did it and they have the results. When you do the work, you get the results. So it's just really a matter of putting the truth out there and seeing who picks it up and runs with it. And those are the ones that get the results.
Well, the people that are inclined to watch this or listen to it are also people inclined to get results, which is encouraging. So you're speaking to the right audience right now. But I understand and sympathize with you more than you could ever know, because there are some people. Another thing I find myself saying all the time is, especially when it's a conversation with someone like yourself, is some people don't want your help. They just want your attention.
That's true.
Right? So they act like they want your help, right? And they take your time and energy, but then they don't do anything. They don't change, right? It's like the person that you give good advice to and they don't take it, right? And so that's frustrating, and I had to learn over time how to identify people. There's some red flags, and how to identify the kind of people that really didn't want my help. They just wanted my attention. And then once I learned how to focus on the people that really wanted my help, and then I saw them get better, then it was like, oh man, okay, this is what it's about.
That's right.
And there's only a small percentage of people that even understand what we're talking about, right?
That's true.
It's just there's a very, I don't know what the percentage is, but it's very small. It's a very small percentage of cancer patients that are willing to change their whole life, that are willing to listen to their instincts and intuition, willing to say no to things that they really feel like they should say no to, but everybody is telling them to say yes. And
you have to go upstream. You go against the current.
Yeah. Sometimes people have that instinct in the beginning, and they walk away in the beginning. Sometimes they have to go through round after round of therapies before they have the wake-up call, and they realize this isn't working. I got to do something else. What else is out there?
That's most of the people that I talk to. They've done all the things the medical system gives them, and when they've been told there's nothing more we can do for you.
Right.
Then they come and see me.
Yeah. And it's harder then.
Oh, it's so hard then. It is so hard because they have just abused their immune system so badly. They're barely functioning. And one of the things I learned early on, which hopefully your listeners are learning this because you're teaching it, I had to quickly at the very beginning of my journey say, I'm not a victim.
Right.
I will not be a victim. This is not my cancer. I never referred to it as my cancer. I didn't own it, and I would not be a victim. And it was hard at the beginning, especially when people would find out I had cancer. They'd want to call and say, oh, I'm so sorry. Don't feel sorry. It's fine. I'm going to be fine. I'm going to get through this. Don't feel that way. It's good. And I would end up trying to encourage them because I knew that it was deadly to become a victim. It was deadly to own the cancer. It was deadly to put myself on the submissive side of this disease. So I, from the beginning, said, God says I'm the healed. Jesus stripes, I am healed. It's already done. So I am healed. So the fact may be true that there may be cancer in my body. Of course, we now know everybody has cancer cells in their body all the time. It just mine was out of control because my immune system wasn't working. So the goal was getting my immune system working again. But I totally took responsibility 100% for getting well and knew that God would lead me to every truth I needed. But it was a partnership. I couldn't say, fix me. I had to take what he had given me, which was all the truths I needed, and run with those and be an overcomer, not a victim. And that doesn't happen just naturally. We aren't that way. We love the attention. We are emotionally, we like people taking care of us. We like people to feel bad for us and bring us gifts and cards and call us and see how we're doing. And boy, that's a trap that I refused to walk into. And I shut that door right at the beginning. And I want to encourage people when I talk to them to say, if you start taking sympathy now, where are you going to draw the line? You aren't a victim here. Why are you taking sympathy? Why are you letting people coddle you? You have to be tough here. You step up, be a warrior, and own your health. Own it. Because this isn't your cancer. This cancer is trying to encroach into your body, and you're telling it no. So how strong are you going to tell it no? So, you have to really own who you are and that you are the healed, not the sick. And it's all up here in the mind. You have to start right there.
The battle starts in your mind. You got to win the battle of the mind. Right?
That's right. That's right.
Oh, I just love everything you said. You're so right. And it's just great. It's great to hear it come out of somebody else's mouth.
You're preaching all the time, and you have someone who believes exactly what you believe.
Yes.
And I applaud you for doing what you're doing because it's a ministry that is making a difference. It's saving lives, and it's helping people learn the truth. And that's what brings about change and victory is the truth. The truth sets you free.
Yeah.
And it's not the information or the knowledge or the facts. It's the truth. And a lot of times the knowledge and the facts are different than the truth. So we have to really be cautious to know that we're finding the truth and not just listening to information that somebody says is correct. Yeah, I had cancer in my body, but I didn't have cancer. I was the healed. And that's how I thought about it from beginning to end. So every circumstance or symptom that told me otherwise, I had to suppress. I had to put it down, and not just put it down, but I put it down with the truth, which was, I'm the healed. I am the healed, and I will live a long and healthy life, because that's what I'm deciding is going to have authority over this body. And that works. There's a power in that. The spoken word is a powerful tool that we have to express authority over our lives. And to speak life over yourself every day, oh my gosh, what a habit going through cancer gave me, to speak health and life every day over me. Long life. I mean, God says, with long life, I'll satisfy you and show you my salvation. But if we don't get in agreement with that, we don't experience it. We have to get in agreement to have those blessings.
Yeah.
He doesn't just force them on us. We have to partnership for those.
That's right.
So,
life and death are in the power of the tongue.
That's right.
Yeah,
that's right.
It's true. And I would speak that. I mean, I'm healed, I'm healthy, I'm well. I mean, that's just what I was saying over and over. I was thinking it. I was speaking out of my mouth every day. It was my confession, right? That was what I meditated on. It's what I spoke over my life and my health and my body. And it was what this is where I put my faith.
Yes.
Right? That's where I put my faith is in healing. And, the Bible also says that, obviously, a proverb most people have heard is, as a man thinketh, so he is. Right? And as you think, you become your thoughts. As what you think about yourself is who you become. Many of us beat ourselves up, right? And we're because of the way we think about ourselves, we become the person that we actually don't want to be. And I had to change my thoughts because I was negative, critical, insecure, jealous, envious, bitter, resentful, judgmental, like all of those things, right? And I'm not Mr. Perfect now, but I can say I'm better than I was. And
That's awesome.
But I had to be honest with myself. I had to, be honest, like, oh man, like I'm a mess. I'm mentally, emotionally, I'm a mess. And I was a believer then, too, but I still just no one had ever taught me how to address my thought life.
Yes.
And the Bible even says, take every thought captive.
Yes.
Right? Which I understood, but, about catching your thoughts and not letting your thoughts and emotions control you. And the fact that you can control your emotions and you can choose your thoughts. Like, I'd heard those things and they made sense to me, but I was never forced to put them into practice until cancer.
Yeah, and that takes work. You have to learn how to do that. You have to learn that discipline. Once you learn it, you've learned it. Then you can do it pretty easily. But building that habit is so important. And yes, what we believe in our heart and speak with our mouth, it establishes what is true in our life. And when we have unforgiveness, I mean, we all get hurt throughout life. We get betrayed, we get hurt, we get wronged. Everybody has those things. But when we harbor unforgiveness, that creates a stress in our body physiologically. And stress physiologically releases toxic stress hormones. Those deplete our immune system. We need our immune system to fight the cancer. So, when God says, forgive those that have wronged you, he doesn't do that to let them off the hook. He does it to get us, give us freedom to live. He's doing it for our benefit. It's not for their benefit. It's for our benefit, because harboring unforgiveness and anger at someone is toxic, literally, physiologically, to our bodies. He's trying to keep us well and healthy. But if we don't get in agreement with that, then we literally can create disease in our body because we have chosen not to forgive. And so, boy, I have to keep telling people, forgive, forgive, forgive. Get rid of the anger. Get rid of those things because they're toxic to your body. And it's not about letting someone off the hook. It's about you living and being well.
Absolutely. Gosh, I say that all the time too. Forgiveness is so huge. It's just so massively huge. I mean, look, Jesus, when he taught his disciples how to pray, well, part of the Lord's Prayer is forgive us as we forgive those who have trespassed, sinned, wronged us, right? And one of the last things Jesus said on the cross, after he'd been nailed on the cross, spit on, beaten, whipped, abused, right, mocked on the cross, one of the last things he said was, Father, forgive them, right? For they know not what they do. So, I mean, look.
What an example.
Yeah, I mean, hey.
Wow.
I don't think it's talked about enough about what a huge emphasis Jesus put on forgiveness.
Oh, huge.
I mean,
huge.
The last thing he said on the cross, almost. The last thing was, I give you my spirit, but, the next to last thing. Pretty important. One of only a few things he said on the cross. Yep. It's good.
Wow.
Well, I'm so excited. Thank you, Paula, for your time. You're just a wellspring of wisdom and life and joy, and I'm so happy we got to take the time. We found the time to do this. I'm excited to read the comments and see the response that we get from your interview. And get ready. People are going to be coming at you pretty.
That's great. Hey, I want to say in the back of the book, Life, Cancer, and God, I wrote all the affirmations that I use. So they're in one of the appendixes. Another one is all the things I did to get well. So I put everything in that book to give people handles of what they can do to get well. So I want to encourage people, if you don't buy the book, get affirmations, put together your own. There's plenty on the internet. Find godly, truthful affirmations that you can speak over your life several times a day. It makes a world of difference.
Is your book on Amazon?
Yes, it is.
Okay, good. Yeah, we'll link to the book. I'll link to your site. For those of you listening on the podcast, we'll put in the show notes. Obviously, if you're watching this on YouTube, there's a link to the show notes on the blog. If you're watching on the blog, obviously it'll be right below the video. So, yes, I want to make sure we direct people to your book. I haven't read it, but I have no doubt it's fantastic, just based on everything you've just said. So I'm excited. And yes, people buy it. And I'm going to buy myself a copy too. So great. Everybody, thanks again for watching. Please share this video. This is life-saving information, life-changing, life-saving information. And there are people in your life that need it. They may need it now. They may need it in the future. But please help us get this message out that cancer does not have to be a death sentence, that the body created it, the body can heal it, and you have so much power over your health, your life, your health, and your future. And Paula Black, you are awesome. Thank you.
Oh, it's been a pleasure, Chris. Keep up the great work. You're doing such a good job.
Yes, ma'am. I'm not planning on quitting anytime soon.
Thanks.
Thanks again. See you, everybody.